As we record this show, Apple's Far Out event is tomorrow. Yes, Wednesday, September 7th. So today on iOS Today, we are going to do a preview of Apple's Far Out event. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is iOS Today, episode 618, recorded Tuesday, September 6th, 2022, Apple's Far Out iPhone event preview. This episode of iOS Today is brought to you by 8 Sleep. Good sleep is the ultimate game changer, and the pod is the ultimate sleep machine. Go to 8sleep.com/iOS for exclusive Labor Day savings through September 11th. If you're listening after September 11th, use the same URL, 8sleep.com/iOS, to check out the pod and save $150 at checkout. And by ExpressVPN. Going online without ExpressVPN is like leaving your laptop exposed at the coffee shop table while you run to the bathroom. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/iOS today and get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package. And by Nomad. Go to nomadgoods.com/iOS today and use promo code iOS today for 10% off your first purchase of any Nomad accessory. They have Apple Watch straps, wireless chargers, ultra durable cables, and more. This is a limited time offer, so hurry on. Welcome back to iOS Today, the show where we talk all things iOS, iPadOS, watchOS, tvOS, HomePodOS, and OS. Apple has lots of operating systems, or platforms as they call them, and we love to talk about them here on iOS Today, although we're getting pretty hardware in this episode. I am one of your hosts, Mikah Sargent.
And I am Rosemary. Definitely still wants a metallic purple iPhone, please, Tim. Thanks for that. Orchard. iPods.
Yes, that multi-hyphenate. I like that. Right in the middle.
Well, just in case, you know, they've still got time. They've still got like 24 hours. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, my fingers are crossed for you. It could happen. We'll see. Whether it will be kind of a dull pro purple or a vibrant purple remains to be seen. But hey, it's purple in either case. So that's exciting, right?
I mean, I have a very important question for you, Mikah. Was your invitation purple, or did it contain a little bit of purple anywhere in there? Because you got an invite to the Apple event, if anybody missed that last week.
Yes, that's right. So I got, I can't remember now, it was some Wednesday ago, I got an invite to the Apple event to attend in person at the Steve Jobs Theater. So I will be there tomorrow. Got to wake up super early so I can drive down to Cupertino and attend the event. So I'm not necessarily looking forward to that part of it, but I'm very much looking forward to the event, being there, and hopefully getting an opportunity to go hands-on with these new devices. So do stay posted to twitter.com/Mikah Sargent for kind of things happening on the ground day of. And then, of course, we'll be talking about it more throughout the rest of that week and through the following week to discuss the next generation of iPhones for sure, and Apple Watches likely. Of course, as we always say, there's a huge caveat that Apple may make some change to its plans at the last minute. It's highly unlikely that that is going to happen, that the sort of rumors that we have that are really locked in, those are very much likely to happen, but I just want to get that out of the way. But it's been the pattern for quite some time that Apple announces its new iPhones in September at a special event. And at that time, about a week after, typically, sometimes a little bit more, Apple will release those new phones to the masses and or open up the pre-orders for those new devices. So all of that in mind. And that this event should also include the Apple Watch. All of that in mind, though, just Apple could make a change to its plans and could start doing iPhone announcements in November if it wanted to. This is just what we know now and what we know from the history of the company. We're following precedent, folks. That's what's happening here today. But yes, let's get into the rumors and the expectations that we have for Apple's next iPhone, the iPhone 14. What do we want to kick things off with?
I mean, I kind of want to kick things off with, the camera, because we've both not been hearing a huge amount about the camera, but also the camera is the seller every single year. It's the real reason why a lot of people upgrade, because they just want to be able to take great pictures, whether it's of their pets or their kids, or it's just because it's a great camera to have in your pocket. It is one of the biggest reasons for upgrading. And currently, it seems like from what we may know due to some case leaks, the lenses are getting bigger, Mikah.
Yes. So there are some new images of cases for the iPhone 14. This happens every year. It's not entirely clear, but the belief is that Apple wants to have a robust accessories market for the new iPhone because that is both good for Apple and good for those third-party businesses who make cases for the iPhone. And so whether it be Apple's own cases or third-party cases, Apple, this is the part that's sort of what we think happens. Apple shares sort of dimensional information with these trusted third-party creators, these third-party manufacturers who take those dimensions and create cases so that those cases can be out near to day one of the launch of the iPhone. But of course, Apple also makes its own cases for the new iPhone every year. I actually am rocking the Apple branded case on my iPhone 13 currently. And so sometimes folks get their hands on those cases or third-party cases and occasionally sort of 3D renderings of devices that those manufacturers use to make cases for those devices. And so in this case, what we're seeing is some kind of bigger circles surrounding the if you were to take this case that they had found and pop an iPhone 13 into it, the circles, the lenses that stick out on the iPhone 13 sort of fit a little tiny inside of the case. And so you can tell that the lenses are, when it comes to a difference that, minuscule measurements can make on these, they're actually quite a bit bigger on the iPhone 14.
Oh, yeah. As somebody who's into 3D printing and making my own solutions to things, the number of times that I've been off by like 2 millimeters and you have to sand it down or reprint it because you just need to increase the size. And it's so frustrating. So it's not surprising. I'm sure some manufacturers as well just speculate and go, okay, well, based on past information and what we're seeing in the rumor mill, we're going to plan that this is going to go like this and set everything up. But of course, that doesn't necessarily guarantee they're going to be right. But I know in the past, I've definitely bought iPhone cases off of Amazon and had them arrive before the iPhone, and the iPhone arrives and it's like, this does not fit at all. So we're going to have to wait and see. But of course, the Apple cases will fit, but they just seem to have a slightly larger area for the camera bump. This year, it's kind of difficult to tell, with the exception of the silent switch, which is not going away. And I both am in favor of the silent switch existing as a physical thing, and I also wish I could control this via software. This is a frequent request that we get for Shortcuts Corner, whether or not you can turn silent mode on and off on your iPhone through a shortcut, and you can't because it's a physical switch. And so I like the fact that it's still there in physical form, but I also wish that I could control it via software somehow. So, we'll have to see what else happens there. But it looks like shape and size-wise, things aren't changing all that much, except for Bye-Bye Mini.
Yes. That is one of the rumors that Apple will be ditching the Mini option. The Mini did not sell up to the standards that Apple hoped for. And so the rumor is that Apple will be getting rid of the iPad mini and instead offering a sort of max size, a larger size of the non-Pro phone. Because as per usual, Apple will likely have 4 total iPhone models: the iPhone 14 standard, the iPhone 14 Max or Plus. We don't know yet what that name is going to be for the larger one. And then in the Pro line, the iPhone 14 Pro and the iPhone 14 Pro Max or iPhone 14 Pro Plus. It all depends. Along with that, the Pro model is rumored to have a 48 megapixel main camera. This is what they call the wide camera, but it is the main camera that you will use most of the time, whereas the ultra wide and telephoto lenses are considered separate from those. Right now, the iPhone 13 Pro and iPhone 13 Pro Max have a 12 megapixel camera. So this is quite a bump in megapixels. And it's fascinating to me because Apple in the past has always kind of shied away from concern with megapixels because the image signal processor, the sort of internal component that lets it, so when you take a photo, it makes the photo look as good as it can, has been so good that scaling those images up, that capturing more data is not necessarily necessary. And so having a greater megapixel size, if your ISP, your image signal processor, is not good enough to do what needs to be done with all that extra data, all that extra capture, then it's almost not worth it. And so the iPhone has been a very good camera at that 12 megapixel size. But I have to say, I am excited about a bump in megapixelage. Yeah, we'll go with that, Rosemary, because I have found myself more often than I have in the past getting physical representations of the photos that I take. I have a subscription to Google Photos that sends me every month, I think it's like 15 images that are printed out. And if you have more megapixels, then it is going to produce an image that is much sharper and looks better whenever you are scaling it versus fewer megapixels where it's just not as much data that's being captured. So scaling it can kind of be an issue. Importantly, I think I mentioned this, but I want to be clear. 48 megapixel lens is supposed to be relegated specifically to the iPhone 14 Pro models, while the other ones will continue with that iPhone 12, that 12 megapixel camera lens.
Yeah. Yeah, and it wouldn't be a surprise to me either if this were something limited to, say, the Max, because the Max has just got more physical space to put something in. If I've got my iPhone 13 Pro here and I think this is a 12 Pro Max. I don't even remember which one this is anymore. Next to each other, you can just see there's more physical space. So, it makes sense to, if you've got a limited amount of physical space to put things in. And honestly, it's one of the reasons why I gave up the Mini, because I wanted those 3 camera lenses. I know a lot of people don't use telephoto, but for me, that's the one I use the most frequently to try and get closer to something where I'm not physically able to. So, it's, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But, Apple always bump the camera specs and talk about how great it is for photos and videos. And they usually sneak in a little photos feature there that they haven't talked about before, or that they've revamped a little bit as well to make it even more exciting for folks, which is quite nice.
Do we think that Apple in the Pro iPhones is going to ditch the Lightning connector? Are we going to see USB-C this year?
Yes and no. I'm 50-50. I kind of think that they might do that because they did it first with the Pro iPads, right? These big 12.9-inch iPad Pros and the 11-inch iPad Pro, those were the first ones with USB-C. And then it trickled down through the lineup into the iPad Air and the iPad Mini. And so now, you've got the iPads with USB-C, and it's kind of just sort of snuck in over time. Though I have to say, when I was upgrading my grandmother's iPad for her last weekend, because it's an iPad Air 2, or it was an iPad Air 2, and we realized it wasn't going to get iOS 16.1, or iPadOS 16.1, which will be the first new version of iPadOS coming out this year. I realized she's going to have mostly Lightning devices and one USB-C device. And you can actually break a USB-C port if you force a Lightning cable into there. And so I shuffled some devices around in the family to avoid that problem. But, I think for the people who are going for the Pro iPhone, they're more likely to be the ones who are willing to use USB-C and want to use USB-C and consolidate things down to one cable. I know for me personally, when traveling, it would be great to have a USB-C iPhone. I would literally only need Lightning for my AirPods, and I don't even need it for them because they've got Qi charging built into the cases, which is great. But I've got more than one friend who said they're not going to upgrade this year if they're not getting USB-C. They'll hold off for another year and wait and see what happens. So maybe we'll see it in the Pro. I think it might be a good idea because Apple does now have that split. There was the whole brouhaha when they switched between the 30-pin connector and the Lightning connector. That was a big deal, and some people talk about it like it was yesterday. Folks, it was a long time ago. We've been using the same port for ages. Of course, the EU has laws coming in which will require them to have USB-C ports on them. So, it may be that they decide to get it over sooner rather than later on the Pro phones, or maybe they'll just do it across the lineup. I'm not sure about that, though.
So I guess we will find out when Apple announces these phones if we will see USB-C this time around or if that's something that's coming down the line, and if Apple is going to address the USB-C concern, so to speak, by including an adapter in the box that will provide USB-C charging for those who want to use it that way. In any case, one other thing that I wanted to mention is the potential change to the notch of the next iPhone. So right now, if you have an iPhone 13 and you look down at your phone, you will see that notch there at the top of the device. It is that black area in the middle of the iPhone where the camera and the Face ID bits and bops, so to speak, are housed, and the system puts the clock on one side and some of the different bars for readouts of your battery power, your Wi-Fi, your cellular service. And so that is how it is done right now. It is rumored that the next iPhone, it's unclear if it's just going to be the Pro model or if both the standard iPhone 14 and the Pro will have a different design where it could feature a pill and punch design is one thought, or just one single pill-shaped cutout. In either case, what's happening here is they're not going to have, according to the rumor, a fully notched area at the top of the screen, but that there will be some screen that shows there at the top, kind of above where the actual camera and the Face ID stuff is housed. I don't know. Ultimately, when it comes to this, I think it's a little odd to me because there's not a whole lot they can do with that area that is right above the cutout of the screen. So it's just kind of one of those things that seems a little bit just for the sake of being able to do it rather than just keeping the notch. I'm curious though, Rosemary, do you feel differently? I mean, I wouldn't want to watch a movie. I wouldn't want to watch a movie on my iPhone anyway, but if I was going to watch a movie on my iPhone, I don't want the movie to extend through that part of the screen. And then there's just this strange pill-shaped notch on the side that is, covering up one of the characters in the film that's on the very edge of the camera. So just to have a little bit of my iPhone's wallpaper up there at the top, right above the notch, I don't really need that. Right above the cutout, I don't really need that.
I mean, are you sure that you don't have like a perfect wallpaper of one of your dogs, maybe Mizzy or something, and like her ear is getting cut off by that area that might be revealed between the punch and the pill? Like that.
It could be. It could be.
Yeah, I think it's one of these things where they're trying to make it less visible. And if we were to get something like an always on screen, which is something that's been not rumored heavily to be clear, but it's certainly been talked about, it's always being talked about, then, it might make more sense from that context where you've got, a transitioning sort of background, and you see more of it, and there's less notch to hide. But I kind of like the notch because there were a lot of app developers out there who were like, yeah, you don't need to see the time or your battery or anything like that. And so I'd end up like not playing those games or using those apps when I was traveling and so on, because when you're, say, at an airport, what's the thing that you always need to know? The time. Also always need to know your battery level, and those were always the apps that I would be like, yeah, okay, this sounds really cool. Yeah, I'm not using this because I wouldn't be able to see those. So I think the notch has actually done some good things, because a lot of app developers are like, well, I don't know what I can do up there, and it does mean that we've won the time and the battery back in many cases. So I'm quite pleased about that. But I'm not sure that there's a huge advantage to having the background above the pill, and I feel like it's an increase in cost as well, which is potentially unnecessary. Not that that's ever stopped Apple, of course. But it seems like it would significantly increase the manufacturing difficulties that you would have, because you no longer have like this off area of the screen, which is just consistent. You've got a little off area and another little off area, which is even smaller, and then you've got the border around the edge where it's actually stuck down. And, I understand the technical limitations why we can't just not have any kind of cutout at the moment. It would be incredibly difficult to do that. But it does just feel like it's going to make it more difficult. And one thing Apple are really good at is shipping a large number of iPhones. And I know that I think it was David Sparks said this on My Power Users. The thing that would get Tim Cook fired is screwing up an iPhone launch. So I feel like they would probably steer away from that sort of thing, but I don't know. Maybe I'll be proved wrong tomorrow.
All right. Well, again, we'll have to wait and see how Apple does the cutout, the punch, the notch, or whatever you want to call it for the next iPhone. I will find out tomorrow, almost around about this time as we're recording the show. But let us take a quick break so I can tell you about our sponsor who is bringing you this episode of iOS Today. It's 8 Sleep. And boy, howdy, am I so glad for 8 Sleep, because it is going to be the difference between me having the energy I need tomorrow to cover the Apple event or not having the energy I need tomorrow to cover the Apple event. I'm very excited to cozy down into my 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover this evening and fall asleep. The Pod 2 Pro cover. Anyway, let's talk about 8 Sleep. We know, I have told you before, I have preached before about the importance of good sleep, because you need to get the best sleep you possibly can. And the 8 Sleep Pod is the ultimate sleep machine that will help you get that sleep you need. Consistent good sleep can help reduce the likelihood of serious health issues. It can decrease the risk of heart disease. It can lower blood pressure. And folks, it can even reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. Yes, restorative stages of sleep are so important for the body. It can help keep you safe and healthy. Yet still more than 30% of Americans, they struggle with sleep, and feeling hot at night is one of the main causes of poor sleep. I can absolutely confirm that. I used to sleep so hot that I would wake up in the middle of the night just uncomfortable, miserable, and sort of need to take a breather in order to get back to sleep. And now I don't do that. It was a testament when one time I had unplugged my Pod 2 Pro cover, and had forgotten to plug it back in. And I, for the first time in a long time, woke up in the middle of the night and was hot and uncomfortable, going, no, what's happened? I thought this was working. And then I realized, oh, it's because I didn't have it plugged in. So I plugged it back in. I cooled down my bed, and I was fast asleep in no time at all. I can now fall asleep in record time. I'm constantly keeping track of that information too, because of my Pod 2 Pro cover. And I fell asleep faster than I ever have before. The Pod, the 8 Sleep Pod, is the only sleep technology that dynamically cools and heats each side of the bed to maintain the optimal sleeping temperature for what your body needs. With the Pod, you can start sleeping as cool as 55 degrees Fahrenheit, nice and chilly, or as hot as 110 degrees Fahrenheit. What does that result in? Well, clinical data shows that 8 Sleep users experience up to 19% increase in recovery, up to 32% improvement in sleep quality, and most importantly, up to 34% more deep sleep. With more deep sleep, I can be confident that my mind and my body are moving through the restorative sleep stages. And folks, these are the ones that are vital for physical recovery, hormone regulation, and mental clarity. Even better, 8 Sleep recently launched the next gen version of the pod. The new Pod 3 enables more accurate sleep and health tracking by doubling the amount of sensors, delivering you the best sleep experience on Earth. And they've actually made quite a few changes in the 3. You should read all about how they have improved upon that technology. The pod is not magic, but it certainly feels like it. I, again, can confirm and do confirm. So go to 8sleep.com/iOS for exclusive, Labor Day savings through September 11th. Don't sleep on this deal. 8 Sleep currently ships within the USA. Oh, wait, maybe do sleep after you get this deal. Get it? Anyway, 8 Sleep currently ships within the USA, Canada, the UK, and select countries in the EU and Australia. If you're listening after September 11th, use the same URL, 8sleep.com/iOS, to check out the pod and save $150 at checkout. Man, now I need to talk to 8 Sleep about don't sleep on that deal, but do. Anyway, thank you, 8 Sleep, for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today and for making my sleep so much better. Goodness gracious, I love my 8 Sleep Pod 2 Pro cover. So great. All right, back to the show with a few more rumors before we get into the news. So we have been kind of running down the list of rumors for the next version of the iPhone 14, both the iPhone 14 Standard and the iPhone 14 Pro. But one thing we did not talk about is the rumors of the next Apple Watch. Yes, Apple is expected to release, or rather announce, the next version of the Apple Watch. And there are quite a few rumors surrounding the device. It is Apple's latest iteration of its wearable that tracks your all sorts of health metrics and is the sort of notification device that you keep on your wrist. This time around, there is rumored to be a body temperature sensor in the Apple Watch, which I'm very excited about. Over the course of the pandemic, we've come to realize that paying attention to trends in one's body temperature can be helpful in early warnings related to different illnesses because of fever. Oftentimes, we aren't aware of the fact that we are running a fever until that fever gets to sort of that high fever stage. But by knowing the standard of somebody's body temperature and then suddenly seeing a spike in it over the course of a week, then you can at least be more aware and use that to do that. So that is an interesting new addition with that body temperature sensor, being able to sort of look at how your body temperature changes over time to give you some more information about that. There's also rumored to... Oh, good. I'm glad you're here. Tell us more your thoughts on some of the rumors with the Apple Watch.
Well, I just wanted to mention the body temperature because I have the Oura Ring, which it doesn't log body temperature into the health app. It just tracks it and compares it. And last week I was actually kind of ill. And one of the things I noticed when I checked the Oura app is it did note that my temperature was running higher than usual. And so it said it was 0.5 degrees above average. And then it continued up a little bit from there before it started getting better. So I think it would be really good to add this. You know, it's amazing what diagnostics you have on your wrist. When I went to the doctor to check whether or not I had an ear infection or tonsillitis or something, he asked me to check my blood oxygen on my watch because he saw I had an Apple Watch and he was hoping it was one of the ones with the blood oxygen and compared it against the machine, and it was the same. So I think it's really interesting that more and more of us are getting used to having personal health diagnostic devices on our wrist because it's pretty cool that we can do that. And of course now there's rumors of a Pro Apple Watch, Mikah.
Yes. The Pro Apple Watch is expected to cost quite a bit more money. It is rumored to have a titanium casing, so a more premium material for the casing, and an improved sapphire crystal display glass on the front. That is because it is going to help people be able to protect their screen. It'll be more resistant to cracks. I have never had this issue with any of my Apple Watches, but recently had Mark Gurman on Tech News Weekly. And during the show, he mentioned that he's had several people who have accidentally cracked their Apple Watch screen. And so this stronger sapphire crystal glass makes sense for many a person who may be using their Apple Watch while they're hiking or something. I don't know. Whatever the case is, to be able to protect that screen by making it stronger is quite nice. Along with this, the latest rumor that I saw is that there may be a programmable button on the Apple Watch, whether they call it the Apple Watch Pro or some other name, Apple Watch Pro Sport, who knows. But this button would be able to trigger something, anything, but particularly related to exercise. So if you are a runner, then you could start a runner exercise by pressing this button that is separate from the standard digital crown that can be pressed in as a button, or that side button. This third programmable button could do any number of things. And man, I got to tell you, I love the idea of a programmable button. I kind of want one on the iPhone. Like, wouldn't it be nice if the side button was here, but then there was a button either above or below it that I could have as a programmable button that just was shortcuts, basically?
So, we don't have a lock screen widgets aren't out yet on the new iOS. The new iOS will be shipping probably, I'm guessing, Friday or next Wednesday. But the lock screen widgets can launch apps, and Launcher is an app because there is no shortcuts to lock screen widget. But Launcher, a great app that allows you to launch a number of things quickly, has added support for shortcuts so that you can put shortcuts on your lock screen. So that's kind of that kind of button. And I was wondering if they're looking at adding that button as a kind of accessibility feature. And I would really love it to be contextual based on which watch face you're in, because now you can change your watch face with your focus mode. Then you could also change the button. And I hear you about the scratches and so on, Micah. It's really difficult to show off, but there we go. You can just about see that there's a really nasty scratch on my Apple Watch screen. That, folks, is called DIY. And the question, the answer to why did you do that? And the answer is I forgot that I have a cover for my Apple Watch that I'm supposed to wear when I'm doing this sort of thing. But, good news is there's going to be new ones announced tomorrow, so I can use this as an excuse to upgrade.
Is that Launcher from Cromulent Labs?
Yes, that is. Yeah, they said to me that they're really hoping to get the app out with the iOS 16 launch, but of course that's all dependent on app review and everything. But they are ready to go with it, and I've been playing with the beta and really loving it. There's some great apps. We're going to have a Shortcuts Corner segment on iOS 16 next week, because there's just so many cool updates that apps have brought in that I can't wait to talk about it all and see what we can do.
Absolutely. I will be including a link to Launcher. It's in the App Store. It's called Launcher with multiple widgets, but we will include a link to that. This is a new feature that will come out with the next iteration, but for the sake of making the current version of that available, we'll link to that in the show notes. I think that there, of course, are other tiny tidbits of little rumors about both the iPhone 14 and the next version of the Apple Watch. But I think we can wait on seeing what Apple does announce, unless there are any other things that I may have missed that you want to briefly mention, Rosemary.
Well, I did want to mention that I think we're going to be seeing an iPad event in October, because Apple is not releasing iPadOS 16. We talked about this last week on the show, and I mentioned it earlier. They're waiting for 16.1 to release iPadOS. And they did say in the message when they officially announced this that this is a big year for iPad. And usually software comes hand in hand with hardware. So let's wait and see what we're going to get there. But I'm really excited to see what they bring out for us. And also, I can't wait to get my hand on those clips from Belkin so that I can use the continuity camera with macOS Ventura, so my iPhone can be a really great camera for me on the go. That's going to be really exciting.
Absolutely. All right, let us move on to the news segment. It is time to head into the news. One of the first stories that is kind of a fascinating story with lots of different perspectives is a series of bills that have passed in California. These are... I got distracted there for a second because I said a series of bills, and both my Mac and my iPhone thought I said, hey, SIRI instead of a series. Anyway, a series of bills have passed in California. These bills are kind of known as the Kids Code bills, and it has been unanimously passed by the state Senate, was approved earlier by the state assembly. So now Governor Gavin Newsom would be next on the list to sign off on this. And frankly, this feels a lot like this. It's one of those things where on the face of it, it seems like it's doing good and will help to protect kids. You know, it's one of those think about the kids kind of things. However, this is legislation that in part gives guardians or parents the ability to sue social media companies who they feel are responsible for their children becoming addicted to social media. And it kind of reduces the barrier, not the barrier, but the burden of proof for a parent or guardian to show that the addiction was caused by the social media. It is an interesting thing because there are some important aspects of this bill that I think are helpful, like keeping strangers from being able to communicate with another stranger, especially if those strangers are on the service as kids. So you can imagine that, you know, if you let your kid use Instagram, or, you know, the child that you're taking care of use Instagram, and they are able to talk to anybody on the service, that they could end up talking to a stranger who does not have their best interest at heart. And that one makes sense. The California Age Appropriate Design Code Act is one of these. And I will sort of quote the New York Times here. Rather than wade into heated political battles over online content, the legislation takes a practical product safety approach. It aims to hold online services to the same kinds of basic safety standards as the automobile industry, essentially requiring apps and sites to install the digital equivalent of seatbelts and airbags for younger users. So again, that the ruling surrounding like what content can be shown to kids and what services and features of different apps are available to a child who signs up, all of those make sense. I think that the biggest kind of controversy or argument against these Kids Code Acts has to do with what is considered social media addiction, what isn't considered social media addiction, and how apps are or aren't supposed to make changes to their services based on that. So it's going to be interesting to see how these companies sort of reconcile with these California laws, particularly given how California is oft the state that comes out first with these changes, and then it slowly rolls out to the rest of the United States in many ways. So we'll see. Do you have any thoughts on that? Because, of course, it's different in the UK. You do have protections for children baked into some of those larger privacy regulations. But I believe some of the CSAM stuff that Apple has done, child sexual abuse material scanning, is live in the UK before it has ever come to the U.S.
Yeah, I think the problem with all of these things is they're very well intended, but to an extent, you're trying to solve an impossible problem. The problem is always going to grow, and I think, social media addiction is definitely a problem, and we do see more and more kids who can't go to sleep without a screen and have to have audio playing all the time. And some of that is just simply an awareness of other problems that people may have, and a greater awareness of that and how people can handle that, and the ease of which that they can get something to help them with it. But some of it is also, just a case of parents also need to understand things. And the number of times I've heard somebody say, I'm not a computer person, but their job requires them to use a computer. And in my mind, if they say, I'm not a computer person, and their job requires them to use a computer, what they're actually saying is, I can't do my job. And I feel like a lot of parents are, people my age who are becoming parents are a lot more aware of how the internet works and all of these things, and also that kids won't just set their age to the actual date of birth. They'll give themselves an extra 10 years so they'll be over 18 or whatever the limit is for these things. But, I think there has to be a certain level of responsibility at home as well, of just education and understanding, because I think that the thing that we're missing in a lot of cases is understanding of what this is. It's up to parents to parent their children, and the laws and so on can only do so much. What is a digital seatbelt? And does something like, say, I don't know, eHarmony, I think it is, one of like an online dating website, do they need to implement something for kids to make sure that they're safe for children when their target market is very definitely not children, and certainly shouldn't be children? But are they also going to be affected by things like this? What about gambling websites? We already have to click through and say that we are over 18, but there's only so much that a website can do. Are we willing to give them huge amounts of personal data to verify our age and who we are so that we can use features or not use features, as the case may be? I'm certainly not willing to give every single web application or service access to my passport information and so on, just to let me use the service. If that's what's required, then I'm going to be looking for alternatives. And I think a lot of other people will as well. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with this one. Hopefully it will be handled sensibly, but I'm slightly concerned this may end up being another case of a government going, sure, give us a back door. It's only for us. It's perfectly safe, and not understanding that if there's a hole, anybody can go through it. They just need to know where it is and how it works.
Absolutely. Well put. Very well put. All right, one more news bit here. This is a great piece from The Verge talking about the 10th anniversary of Apple Maps. Oh my goodness, do I remember when Apple Maps launched, and it was a mess. In fact, The Verge includes the first version of a screenshot from the first version of Apple Maps, or rather a photo of the screen of an iPad, not even a screenshot, of Apple Maps, and the latest version of Apple Maps. And the difference is astounding. The first version of the bridge, the Brooklyn Bridge, is sort of sloped and falling off and falling into the ground. And the new version, of course, just shows the bridge just fine. I can remember hearing report after report of folks using Apple Maps and being directed to places that either did not exist or were not where they expected to go. It reminded me of that episode of The Office, the comedy, where they were following the GPS, and Michael Scott just absolutely believed in the GPS, so much so that whenever it told him to turn right, where he was supposed to actually just sort of veer right, he did a full right turn and kept driving and drove directly into a lake. And that was kind of the case with the earlier versions of Apple Maps. But now that it's 10 years old, it's really quite astounding how well Apple Maps works. I really dig Apple Maps. I've used it since the beginning. I didn't have any of those early issues because I think partially because I wasn't in complex areas with more sophisticated and sort of intense navigation that needed to take place. But by the time I had moved to California, where traffic was a little bit different, Apple Maps was new enough that, or updated enough that it worked very well. And over time, they continue to make improvements to it, add new fun features. I love now when I am riding in a car with my partner and he's driving and we're using Apple Maps, I love to just look at the screen from time to time and see how Apple Maps has added 3D renderings of buildings and structures that are on either side of us as we're driving. And just knowing the work that's gone into building out those maps and making them as detailed as they are these days. And then the features that have been added over time, like announcements of upcoming speed traps or road closures, the latest feature where you can plan routes along the way, plan stops along the way of your route, all sorts of stuff that you can do with Apple Maps that wasn't originally part of it. And I know a lot of people, while those updates needed to happen, were using Google Maps. A lot of people on iPhone using Google Maps or Waze. And so, yeah, I'm really impressed with the changes that Apple has made over time, and that they, for the most part, took ownership of the early issues with Apple Maps and did their best to make improvements to it.
Yeah. I have to say, I personally use Apple Maps like pretty much all the time, and it works really well for me. It integrates nicely with CarPlay. I like the fact that I've got favorites and guides so that I can save places really easily without having to add them into context or something like that. And it does seem to work pretty well. I'm yet to really run into any particularly huge problems. I tend mostly to drive places where I know at least approximately where I'm going, but equally, I'm going to the dentist a week on Friday, and I'm not actually sure how to get there from where I'm going to be beforehand. And I have no qualms. I'm not going to bother checking it out in advance other than to check what the approximate travel time will be, to make sure that I leave myself plenty of time. And, Apple Maps is going to get me there, and I'm sure it'll be just great. I don't even keep Google Maps installed as a backup anymore. That used to be something that I would do previously, and I don't bother anymore because it just works really well.
Nice. All right, folks, we're going to take another quick break before we come back with the Shortcuts Corner segment and feedback and questions. But I do want to tell you about ExpressVPN, who are bringing you this episode of iOS Today. Goodness gracious, do I love ExpressVPN. Let's think about this. Using the internet without ExpressVPN, it's like leaving your laptop exposed at the coffee shop table while you run to use the bathroom or pick up your double mocha triple latte at the counter. Most of the time, you're probably fine. You can run and do that right quick. But what if one day you come out of the restroom or you walk back, trying not to spill your mocha double cappuccino frappe latte, and your laptop is gone? What? Obviously, that's not great. So in the same way that you shouldn't walk away from your computer while you go to do those things, you should be browsing with a VPN. Why does everyone need a VPN? Well, every time you connect to an unencrypted network like cafes, hotels, airports, a hacker that is on that same network may be able to gain access to your personal data, those passwords you're typing in, financial details that you are putting into that website. And it doesn't take much technical knowledge to hack someone. Just some cheap hardware is needed, so much so that even a smart 12-year-old could make it happen. Your data is valuable. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person selling personal information on the dark web. And in some cases more. If they get a lot of data all at once, using that and selling it is quite the profit for them. So protect your data, protect your browsing with a VPN. And if you're going to get a VPN, you might as well get the VPN that I use and love and have recommended for quite some time, ExpressVPN. Why? Well, first, there's ExpressVPN's encrypted tunnel. It creates a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet so that hackers can't steal that sensitive data. It's incredibly secure. It'd take a hacker with a supercomputer more than 1 billion years to get past ExpressVPN's encryption. It's very easy to use. You just fire up the app and click one button to get protected. And it works on all of your devices. That's a big thing. Phones, laptops, tablets, and more. All of those. It'll work on all those devices so you can stay secure on the go. I use ExpressVPN because not only is it so fast, I've said this before, I sometimes forget that I have it on some of my devices. I turn it on most of the time, but occasionally, there's I don't find that I have a need to use it, and I will look up and it's on. And that is because it's so fast when it's on, unlike some VPNs I've used in the past where you turn it on and you're waiting for the page to load. No, ExpressVPN is zippy quick. It's very easy to enable on all of your devices. I've got it on iPhones and iPads and Macs and all sorts of devices. And just knowing how simple it is to use. Oh, and then I will also say that there have been a few times where I needed to travel locations virtually in order to access content online that I really wanted to watch, but couldn't watch because I lived in the United States. So being able to sort of teleport to another location using that VPN was very helpful. But most importantly, I use ExpressVPN over other VPNs because I can trust it. I know from having done my own research, not once, but twice, once in the beginning just to get my basic knowledge of ExpressVPN, but then again to sort of reconfirm that ExpressVPN was protecting my privacy and was truly doing what it could to make sure that none of my data was stored somewhere and able to be used. That is because ExpressVPN uses a really cool technology where the servers are run using RAM, random access memory. It is a volatile type of memory that when there's no power to it, all of that data goes away. So the second those servers turn off and restart, that data is gone. They're not keeping it. They're not collecting it. And it's not even stored in a way that could be sort of recovered. Secure your online data today by visiting expressvpn.com/iOS today. expressvpn.com/iOS today. That's expressvpn.com/iOS today. And you, yes, you can get an extra 3 months free. expressvpn.com/iOS today. Check out ExpressVPN. You got to go there. And thank you, ExpressVPN, for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. All right, we are back to the show, and I can hear the music because it's time for Shortcuts Corner. Yay! All right, Rosemary Orchard, it is time to kick off Shortcuts Corner. This is the part of the show where you write in with your Shortcuts Corner requests, and Rosemary Orchard, the Shortcuts expert, provides a response. This week, we're kicking things off with a preview of what's to come in iOS 16. Talk about it, Rosemary.
Yeah, so some of the things that we've talked about on the show before in Safari have, they've been one of my favorite features, tab groups and things like that. But you couldn't really automate them before. And what I'm really excited by is some new actions that are coming to shortcuts in iOS 16 and iPadOS 16. I'm going to show these off on my iPad in just a second, specifically for Safari and also for those tab groups, because they've really upped their game. And it's really exciting to see. And I have to say, I'm really impressed with all the folks at Apple who've been busy adding shortcuts support into the native apps, because it really has just improved everything. But if you go into the iPad on iOS 16, or your iPhone on iOS 16, iPadOS 16, then you can see in the Safari app, and I'm just going to move myself out of the way here so that people can actually see what it is I'm talking about. When I pop into Safari, then you'll see there's so many more actions here than we had before. And I really, really am excited by this because you can now find bookmarks. I think, Mikah, this is something you and I talked about before, right? If there was a way to like get bookmarks out of Safari, and at the time it was kind of, you had to do it with AppleScript and there wasn't a really great way to get a folder or something. But you can now find bookmarks, and you can find all your bookmarks, or you can, filter and go through titles or look for URLs, which is really cool. And then, of course, you can open them. But you can also go through your tab groups. And Mikah, I know you've been using tab groups quite a bit for various things, and I've certainly been massively increasing my usage of tab groups. But now you can create a tab group. So you can, instead of, say, creating a bookmarks folder for something, which is just going to be temporary, you can create a tab group with that, and I could call it, say, iOS Today if I wanted to. And then I can even add tabs to my tab group and open tabs and open the tab group and so on. And I'm just really excited that these options are available for us. And not only are they available for us, we're getting other controls inside of Safari. We talked a little while ago, Mikah, about using the run JavaScript on web page action to use camel, so that you can, take advantage of that. And that wouldn't be possible without some of these actions.
Right.
And also, have folks ever lost a tab? That's something that I have to show my parents kind of frequently, that you have to tap and hold on the button in Safari to merge your windows back together if you've got multiple windows because you've lost a tab. Well, now you can use a find tab action to help you find whatever window that might be in. And it's just exciting to see all of these things. And I think I might have a nice example shortcut to show off some of the great things that you can do in iOS and iPadOS 16 next week on the show for folks to get everything working using all new shortcuts actions, because isn't that cool?
Yes, I am looking forward to some of these new features that are available, and I do use tab groups. It's a very handy way to get multiple tabs when I use my Mac laptop to get multiple tabs from that Mac laptop all together at once over to my Mac Studio and have them all there at once available to me. So that's just one way that I make use of it, but there are lots of cool kind of additions that you get whenever you use those tab groups, and I find myself using them quite a bit. The Shortcuts Corner request today comes from Robert, who writes, "Hey, thanks for a very good show," smiley face. Thank you for listening, Robert. Robert writes, "I have a question regarding training. Is it possible to use shortcuts to save training time from the iPhone fitness app to the calendar? For example, results from a run outdoor, total time, distance, etc." So I think when Robert says training, we're talking about exercise here. Maybe this is different depending on where you live. Instead of it being called exercise, it's called training. In any case, I guess that Robert is wanting to kind of look back on the calendar and say, oh, on the 4th, I ran this amount of time, I ran this distance, and it was an outdoor run, and see that calendar event. That would be kind of nice now that I think about it, to be able to look back on your calendar and go, look at me. Look at all that running I did, protecting my cardiovascular health. All right.
Yeah, and it is a great idea, Robert. I believe, actually, Mikah, training is often used in German-speaking countries and Germanic-based languages. So I wonder if perhaps Robert is from Germany, Austria, Switzerland, Sweden, Denmark, that area of the world. I'll have to look back and find out in case he left a clue in the email that I've left out for privacy purposes. But this is a really cool idea. And, I had a couple of thoughts. And my first thought was, well, of course, we'll just pop into the iPhone. You have to do this on the iPhone, of course, and we'll look at the health app. And, we can log a workout. Well, that's easy enough. But what if I want to get the details of a workout? And so I went in and I thought, okay, so I'm looking for, I guess health samples. Yep. And I need to say that the type is a workout. And so I searched and, now I ran into the problem of, no, there isn't anything here. And then I remembered our good old friend Shortcuts Automations, where you can create personal automation. And unfortunately, this iPhone doesn't have an Apple Watch paired to it, which is something I will need to fix for the future. But on my regular iPhone, where you have the log Apple Watch workout, you can actually use when your workout ends as a prompt. And so you can then say for any kind of workout. And then when you tap the next, inside of your shortcut input, you actually have a whole number of variables. And this one is unfortunately a little difficult to share and show with folks because you need to, you can only do it inside of an automation. Basically. But what you can do, and what I'd always recommend people do when they're looking to try and see like what information is there available, just add a text action. Okay, a good friend here is the text action, and then you can put something like, say, for example, the shortcut input in there, and then you can actually see what variables are available to you so that you can then, do something with it. And I'm hoping that that's something that you're going to be able to do there, Robert. I managed to do this successfully earlier today. And since then, I've rebooted my iPhone and I'm having a slight bug with Shortcut. So I need to actually file that in the feedback app. So unfortunately, when I go and I look at the details of the Shortcut input, it's showing null at the moment. It literally just shows a weird error message. And previously, it was actually showing me details like, the time it started and the time it ended. But you can certainly take a look at doing that. And the other option, of course, back in just our regular shortcut for logging health information, where you've got your health samples, you can actually go through and you can say, hey, I'm looking for anything that was today. And then you could look for example, your cardio fitness today or pushes, cycling distance, if you're using cycling as your workout, or your swimming distance and things like that, active energy. And you can get that data and you can pull all of that into a calendar event. And thanks to a relatively recent update to Shortcuts where they added support for editing calendar events, well, you can always take this information at the end of your day and edit an existing calendar event if there is one from your Apple Watch workout ending. So I'm hoping that's going to give you some ideas, and I'm very annoyed that the things that I'd prepared to show up on my iPhone weren't working just now. But take a look at the health data from here. And also, don't forget, third-party apps will be able to get access to your health data. And so you may find one of those. And I actually have a request. If anybody knows of a health app that integrates with Shortcuts that will allow you to get workout data more easily, then please, can you let me know? Because I would love to go and dive into that and have some fun with it and just see, there's so many great third-party applications with Shortcut support. Imagine being able to chart your fitness with Charty and have it as a widget on your home screen, customized just to you. That would be really cool. And just, need some more data to make it happen. But I think we can probably get there with most of what we've got already.
That is really cool. All right. Let us move on to feedback and questions. We'll take another quick break and then we'll round things out with our app caps. The first feedback comes from Jeremy. Jeremy writes in, purple exclamation point. Light purple or dark question mark. I would prefer royal over lavender. Just remember the 12 in purple was a mid-year addition. If it isn't at the event, it doesn't mean it won't come later. From Jeremy. And of course, yes, this makes sense because there was a green iPhone that came after the launch of the iPhone. And I was very frustrated that it came afterward instead of being there on day one. Ugh.
Yeah, I get why Apple do this, right? They add colors midway through the cycle because it gets people who didn't hop on the bandwagon to jump on now because the color that they want is there. And also, that these special colors are limited time. They're not going to be around with the next version. But it is so frustrating. So frustrating when, green comes out for Mikah and he's already got an iPhone and can't justify trading his iPhone in and getting exactly the same one just in green. Or for me, when they came out with the purple ones, which they limited to just the 12 and the 12 mini, it wasn't available in Pro. And it was more of a lilac, to be honest. That was a real shame that came out. I did end up buying a mini as my test device, which I really love, and it's a great little device. It's really cute. But yeah, maybe if we don't get it tomorrow, we'll get it later. But I don't know what I'm going to do then, Mikah. I think I would have to say, like, I'm really looking for kind of plum color, like a metallic plum.
Yeah.
That would be really nice. And I feel like that wouldn't be too out there for a lot of people as well. Maybe even some folks who don't like the gray that has replaced the black might even go for it. And, we'll have to see. I understand why Apple can't produce every color of the rainbow, but I wish we could definitely have purple. Crossing my fingers. And, Mikah, you have the mission to intercept Tim Cook if there is no purple iPhone and ask him to make that happen. Politely, please, because I'd like you to be invited back to future events.
Of course. Certainly with all politeness, but with all seriousness and politeness at the same time. Preston writes in, good day, Mikah and Rosemary. It's been a while since I've written in, but as an owner of the Satechi Hub for iPad, I wanted to give a bit of info. It has been a great purchase and lives up to Satechi's rep, but there are compatibility issues with the M1 iPad. Could just be that the iPad Pros with Thunderbolt it could just be that it's because the iPad has Thunderbolt, which is the device that they have. Even though they say it is not compatible at all, I find most things still work. The main thing that doesn't work so far is the pass-through charging. Thanks for the continuously great show. Preston from St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada. So Preston is saying, hey, if you try to get the Satechi Hub for the iPad, they will tell you it does not work with the M1 iPad. But you can still get it for the M1 iPad. It's just that it will not work with pass-through charging. And yes, I have, I think that you're onto something there, Preston, with it being that it's not compatible with the Thunderbolt that is supported. So that's probably what the issue is there and what's causing it not to work as you expect it to.
Yeah, I did just want to mention, if anybody is looking, this is in response to my hyperdrive that I brought up as my app cap last week because I found the Satechi as an alternative. If you have the Magic Keyboard, you have two USB-C ports. You've got the one on your iPad itself, and you've got the one in the Magic Keyboard. And I have a little Charge ASAP dongle in there. And that's how I do the magnetic charging of my iPad. And then I have this one free for data and everything else. So, you may actually not need pass-through charging as much as you might think for something like that. So it might be worth a try if folks are looking, but also just keep an eye out for sales and see if you can get something that definitely works.
All right, let us take a quick break before we come back with the rest of the show. I got to tell you about Nomad, who are sponsoring this episode of iOS Today. Got to tell you, I'm so happy that Nomad is a sponsor. I've used their products for so long and have loved them. So finally to get the opportunity to say, hey, they're sponsoring the show, they're bringing this to you. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that you will be happy when you get any of the accessories, chargers, and products that Nomad offers. This is the Nomad charging stand. This is just one example. This is a charger that sits on my desk. It's a wireless charger. You put your phone on the front of it. There's a wireless charging pad built into the stand, and it has a little LED light on the bottom that will light up to let you know. And what I love about it is that on the back, they've gone as far as to include a light sensor there, an ambient light sensor, so that if it's dark, it's not going to show that LED so bright and light up the room. I love that because most of my devices, I end up having to put little stickers that are either fully black or are sort of light filtration black to either dim or completely black out LEDs. But Nomad thought about that. I also have talked in the past about Nomad's cables. I've got so many of their cables because I've slowly replaced as many of my cables as possible with Nomad cables. Why? Well, for one, many of their cables are made with Kevlar, and so they are very resilient, very strong. There's one that I always talk about that's on the floor that is kind of a free moving USB-C charger that I can plug something into at a moment's notice. But I've got a very heavy chair, and I've not had any issues rolling over it by accident from time to time. It works just fine after that. But the other reason is because they sell these very clever universal cables. This is a cable with USB-C ports USB-C plugins on either side. So by standard, I'm trying to pull that out there, it's USB-C. But on one side, you can make it USB-A by slipping the cord over the top of the USB-C part. And on the other side, you can make it micro USB by slipping it over the USB-C. So you've got all sorts of different versions you can do here. USB-C to micro, USB-A to USB-C, USB-A to micro, and then USB-C to USB-C, all there and available for you to use, plus dozens of other great products, including the ones made with their beautiful Horween leather from the Horween Tannery in Chicago. It was founded in 1905, and they make this beautiful leather that lasts ages, looks great as it ages, and will keep your devices protected. I'm showing my AirPods Pro case on screen. It slides over the top of the case from Apple, still supports the wireless charging that this case has, but also includes a little area to slip a lanyard on so that I can easily grab up my AirPods when I need to. Nomad has a bunch of great stuff. You've got to check it out, including some new AC adapters with 30 watt and 65 watt GAN power. Super awesome. And I can't recommend them enough. Nomad makes excellent products that look great, and you can check them out by going to nomadgoods.com/iOS today. Use the promo code iOS today for 10% off your first purchase of any Nomad accessory. That's nomadgoods.com/iOS today with the promo code iOS today. It's a limited time offer, so please head there quick as you can and head there via that link we've included, nomadgoods.com/iOS today. By doing that, you will be letting them know that you heard about it here on the show, which will help us. So go there that way. We appreciate it, and we appreciate Nomad for sponsoring this week's episode of iOS Today. All right, back from the break, and it's time for a couple of more feedbacks. One from Michael, who writes in, "Hello, Mikah and Rosemary. I found the episode on file management to be particularly interesting and useful to me." I'm so glad to hear that. My iPad has become my main everyday computer, so knowing all my options to manage files has become rather important. Thanks for the great work. Michael, Brooklyn, New York. I am so glad to hear that. I'm sure you are too, Rosemary, because that is really the point of this show, is to make sure that you out there are being able to make the most of the devices that you have, and that you are aware of just how great they can be, and that there are so many different apps and services that can help you to even improve upon the processes that you use right now to work each and every day.
James in the Club Twit Discord did let me know earlier that we cost him quite a bit of money last week with a couple of new apps for him that he's really pleased to have massively improved his workflows. So, I'm just really excited that folks really enjoyed it. And even my nerdier apps hit a home run with some folks. So that's really good. And it's always good to hear from people, when they've heard something on the show and they like it, or they've got questions, or just, they want to say thanks. It's really lovely to hear.
Absolutely. All right. The next one, the final one, comes from Lori, who writes in, "Hi, Mikah and Rosemary. Love your show. I wonder if you could help with the constant problem of iCloud storage getting full. We already subscribed to the 99 cents a month upgrade, but now it is getting too full again. No matter how many emails we toss, it still says full. What is going on? How can you toss 1,000 emails and it still be full? I would love to archive some of my business-related emails on an external drive. Is that possible? Should I stop backing up my email to iCloud, or is there a way to keep the junk mail from taking over the space besides deleting them as they come in? Any ideas would be great." Lori from Los Angeles, California. Mm-hmm. Well, this is...
I have a thought here, Mikah, and I kind of feel like email is a red herring. Text doesn't take up space. Yeah, yep. Text itself does not take up space. It's the attachments, and it's your files, your photos, and things like that are going to be taking up all the space there. Like backups of devices in iCloud that you no longer have, that's something that's really easy to overlook, and you'll keep backups around for much longer than you intend to. it's so easy to put things into iCloud and not realize they're there. And if I'm correct, the 99 cents is only 100 gigabytes, unless I'm mistaken. So it might be worth looking at the $2.99 option. I understand that adds up every month, but if this is a continual problem you're running into and you're actually actively, deliberately using iCloud for things, then $2.99 a month may not be such a bad price to pay.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that what's actually causing the issue is email. In many cases, depending on what email service you're using, those emails aren't even being really stored locally. It's the modern way of doing email is a little bit different, where it kind of just shows you what is stored elsewhere. And of course, there are different adjustments you can make to actually have it download the text of the email, or in some cases the attachments, but it's almost like a reference to the email that's stored elsewhere. I love that you've included a great link to a support document that talks about all of the different ways that you can manage your iCloud storage. One of the furthest things down the list is mail and the suggestions, because Apple also knows that mail is not really what the issue is here. It is likely, I think, as you said, Rosemary, that first one, those backups of iPhone, iPad, iPod Touch, etc., may be taking up a lot of space. And if you don't need those older backups, or if you've moved on to newer devices, getting rid of those backups is a great idea. You probably want to leave your photos alone, but you could be storing folders and files there that you don't realize. And then actual text messages, because it also saves the images and videos that are sent in those messages, those could also be taking up space. So definitely check out the link we'll include in the show notes for managing your iCloud storage, Lori. And I think that you'll find your answer there. And we'd love to hear back on how you cleaned up that space. You've been doing a lot of work trying to get rid of emails, and I have to tell you, it's not going to be doing much. It's just not the biggest issue.
I mean, unless you're sending like humongous video files via email, that seems kind of unlikely. I did just want to point you into the settings app. If you tap on your image at the top where it's got the iCloud information and so on, and then you go into iCloud storage, you need to give it a little while to load. But once it's loaded, then you'll be able to see what is taking up the space on your device and in iCloud as well. So there's one view for your device and there's one view for iCloud storage. And the chat room has just confirmed for me that the 99 cents a month is only 50 gigabytes of storage. So it's quite possible. Like, I've got 101.7 gigabytes of photos here, and I honestly don't really try and take that many pictures. It just happens. I've got 10 gigabytes taken up by iMessage and 40 gigabytes taken up by backups. I'm very sure I could slim that down, but I've got the 2 terabyte plan because that's what I needed to have enough HomeKit cameras set up. So with HomeKit Secure Video, so you have to go for a higher iCloud plan if you're using a lot of cameras in HomeKit. But, it was worth taking a look in this area just to see what's actually taking up all that space, because I really don't think it's going to be email. It may be that on your device, mail's taking up lots of space, but I'm doubtful that it really is. I think something else is taking up all the space in there. And as Mikah said, be careful with your photos. Please really be careful with them. You don't want to lose your photos, and it can be really difficult to get them back if something goes wrong. So make sure that you do back up. And if you are considering moving your photos elsewhere, please do me a favor and plug your phone into a Mac or a PC and do a full backup using iTunes on Windows or Finder on the Mac first, and make sure that you get all of those photos and you export them off of your device before you do anything on your iPhone or your iPad, just in case. I really don't want you to lose them.
Well put. All right, with that, it is time to move on to the app caps. This is the part of the show where we wear caps atop our heads to honor our app or gadget picks of the week. These are the apps or gadgets we are using that we want to share with all of you. Rosemary Orchard, tell us about the cap atop your head, and then tell us about your app or gadget pick of the week.
I'm just waiting to be upstaged, Mikah. I've already seen what you're wearing. I love it. It's amazing. My hat is maybe not quite so fancy. It's a pirate hat, though. Yeah. I get to take over the world. I get a pirate hook. It's not a very good pirate hook, but the good news is my app cap is better than a pirate hook, because my app cap is one of the apps that actually James in the chat room of Club Twit ended up buying last week, because I mentioned it kind of sneakily in the file section, but I didn't really bring it up because it's not a file management app. It's an app that you can use to edit files, and you can use it to edit any kind of text file. And what I really love is just how great this app is for all of it, because you can say this file is a JavaScript file, this one is a Markdown file, this one is a HTML file, or you can edit CSVs, TSVs. I am, of course, talking about Textastic, which is available on iPhone and iPad for $9.99 one-time in-app purchase to get you everything that the app can do. And it's just a great app. So I've got it open here on my iPad, and you can see, to start with, I have a sidebar on the left, and I've got a nice big editing area on the right. And over on the left, to start with, I've got local files and iCloud files at the top, so I can just create my files here. And when I go to create a file, it'll ask me what's the file name, or I can choose to turn it into a folder, or I can go ahead and import some things if I want to. And I can also use templates, and I can even go ahead and create my own templates if I want to for various things. And that's a good start, right? Being able to create files. But what I also love is the next little bit down. I can open external folders, and I can create external folders and add external folders. And the difference between opening and adding is, opening an external folder is kind of temporary. So if I go to open it, then it'll be whatever that folder. Then when I close it, I'm done with it. It goes away. But if I add an external folder, that's where all of these come in. All of these things down the side, these are folders from other apps that I have added to Textastic. I could have the, say, DevonThink folder from on my iPad here, and I can just add this, and then it shows up in this list, in the list on the side, and then I can just go into this and, see and edit those files and add to them, which makes it a really great app for being able to integrate with all of those great document apps that we talked about last week. And I'm just going to open up something. I have, of course, Micah, I've got a smart air fryer, right? This is me we're talking about. Of course, my air fryer is smart. I can control it with an app. And I've added it to Home Assistant, but I wanted the other day to change it from when it says turn pot to shake, because that's what the state actually is. And to just open these Python files and go ahead and start editing them. I can use Find, of course, with Find and Replace. I'm using the Magic Keyboard, so I have, all of the keyboard shortcuts that I could want that are completely logical for me. And these change, of course. So right now, because I'm in the search with Find and Replace, I can go up and down using Command Up and Command Down. But if I were to move out of this and tap on, say, a line, when I tap on the command, I can see Shift Left and Shift Right with the square brackets for left and right. It's just a really great app that can do all, if you need to edit text files on your iPad, this is the app for you. It's got integrations into so much stuff. You can check all your file properties, anything, everything you like. And I have to say, I'm really impressed with it. It's also got the ability SSH connections built in. Personally, I love Secure Shellfish for the SSH connection, because I find it nice to have Secure Shellfish over in a split on the right-hand side, and then Textastic over on the left. But, you can use it however you like. And at $9.99 one-time purchase, it's a pretty good deal.
Nice. All right. For me, the cap on top of my head is one that I made. This is a crocheted hood that looks like the Ewok Wicket. In the Star Wars film, Wicket wears this orange hood, and so I am wearing it's sort of a hood and bib combo that I am wearing atop my head. For all of you listening out there, you really have to catch it in its full majesty by checking out the video to see what it is. And it even comes with little ears like the Ewok has as well. They're very soft and fuzzy. The app that I want to tell you about, though, is Home Devices for HomeKit. This is an app that I think I've even talked about before on the show, and certainly my co-host of Smart Tech Today back in the day, Matthew Casanelli, has talked about this app before. The reason I wanted to talk about it is because this app is a really cool app for staying up to date on what accessories are available for HomeKit, how they work, what they can do, and what I love the most is that this app supports notifications, is the word I was looking for. This app supports notifications for app updates. I'll explain that in a moment, but I want to show you. There's a section at the top called Discover that lets you kind of learn about some of the new features like Home Key, which is a feature that lets you use your iPhone as a key to access your home. But it will show you at the bottom the devices that will actually work with Home Key. Very handy to then tap on that, see how much these devices cost, see what sort of automations they support, because this is one of these apps that uses the whole user base of that have used this app in the past. When you launch the app, you give it access to your HomeKit setup, and the app can pull in all that information and give you information about how these devices work. So then you can see that, okay, this is a lock mechanism. Here is what it supports, including battery level, so that you could set up different notifications for that. It has Thread, and that can kind of get into more depth. Then there are some of like the latest devices that have launched. So this is a fun way to see, oh, okay, Aqara has come out with a new single DIN switch, or there's a new air quality monitor / purifier that's available, and motion sensors, all great to see. But what I love is the app updates. I don't like to have a lot of the HomeKit third-party apps on my devices, but in many cases, you need those apps in order to update the firmware of your HomeKit devices. Some manufacturers have gone as far as to allow you to use the Home app to actually do those firmware updates, which is what I prefer, but they don't all do that. And so you sometimes have to use those third-party apps to do so. This keeps me aware of the apps that have updated across the whole ecosystem, including August, which is a smart lock manufacturer, Eufy Security, which makes lots of different products, Hue. And so then you can tap into these apps and very quickly visit them in the App Store. And look, I've got an update for Philips Hue that I haven't installed yet. So I can go there and make that update. But just to be able to know what all is out there, what's available for me to purchase if I so choose, and to kind of keep track of where the state of HomeKit is at any given moment is very handy. And I love that there's sort of information for individual types of connections and knowing what products support those different types of connections. It's just the HomeKit nerd's dream of an app for not managing your smart home, but being aware of the technology that's available to add to your smart home or update upon your smart home. It is available for free. It has an in-app purchase, $14.99 for a lifetime purchase of the app, $6.49 a year or 99 cents a month. That gets you access to more features, including that app feature that I was talking about. I think that's such a valuable feature that it was well worth that purchase. You can find it in the App Store, of course, and download it. So if you are a HomeKit nerd, you should absolutely own Home Devices for HomeKit. And with that, we have reached the end of this episode of iOS Today. This, of course, is the show where you can message us, iOS Today at twit.tv, to ask your questions, to provide feedback, to send us Shortcuts Corner requests, to figure out how to use different devices, to send us suggestions for apps we should cover, or different features that you may want us to talk about on the show. We love to hear from you, and that is one of the best ways to do it, by going to iOS Today at twit.tv. We record this show live every Tuesday around about 9 a.m. Pacific, which is 12 p.m. Eastern time. So you can tune in live by going to twit.tv/live. But the best way to get the show is by subscribing or following. You You can do that by going to twit.tv/iOS. When you do, you'll see two buttons. One, subscribe to audio, the other, subscribe to video. And clicking on either of those lets you subscribe to us across all sorts of platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, all the places. We try to be everywhere you are listening to podcasts so that you can get the show as soon as it's available. I should also mention the incredible Club Twit, such a great value. At twit.tv/clubtwit, you can become a member of the club. For $7 a month or $84 a year, you get every single Twit show with no ads. So it's because you are supporting the content instead of the ads supporting the content. You also get access to the Twit Plus bonus feed that has extra content you won't find anywhere else, behind the scenes, before the show, after the show, and a bunch of stuff from us hosts, and access to the members-only Discord server. That is a fun place to go to hang out with your fellow Club Twit members, and also those of us here at Twit. And we have some great folks in the iOS Today chat who are constantly providing great feedback, offering suggestions, asking questions that make their way into the show. I love our Club Twit listeners so much, and I thank you so much for participating. And also shout out to those of you in the IRC who are there every Tuesday morning to hang out with us while we record the show. Appreciate you all as well. Again, twit.tv/clubtwit to check it out. You'll also get access to my Hands-on Mac show, which is a great place to learn about different tips, tricks, and everything in between for the Mac, and Hands-on Windows if you are an iPhone or iOS user that also has a Windows machine. Hands-on Windows from Paul Thurrott will help you make the most of your Windows devices. Rosemary Orchard, if folks want to follow you online and check out all the great work you do, where should they go to do so?
Well, the best place to go is somewhere where my hat actually stays on my head. I feel like this one's a bit too big. And also, I've been reminded, September 19th, Talk Like a Pirate Day, Micah. We're going to have to team up on pirate hats that week to really coordinate. But in the meantime, you can find me at rosemaryorchard.com, which has links to all the podcasts and the things I do around the internet. And of course, you can also find me on Twitter at Rosemary Orchard and hanging out in the Club Twit chat room, where I'm always lurking, and some folks have had some really great suggestions for some future app topics that I can't wait to get to. How do you feel about talking about health, Micah?
Oh, I feel very good about talking about health. And certainly next week, we will be talking about my experience at the Apple event and the new devices that are finally out. But perhaps the week after, we will tackle at least one health topic. I know that there are a few that kind of fit into the purview of health. So until then, it is time to say goodbye. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope you all are as excited as we are about the next iPhones, and finally, most importantly, the release of iOS anew, so that we can help you make the most of that new version of iOS. Thank you for tuning in. Goodbye.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am Ant Pruitt, and I am the host of Hands-On Photography here on Twit TV. I know you got yourself a fancy smartphone, you got yourself a fancy camera, but your pictures are still lacking. Can't quite figure out what the heck shutter speed means? Watch my show. I got you covered. Want to know more about just the ISO and exposure triangle in general? Yeah, I got you covered. Or if you got all of that down, you want to get into lighting, making things look better by changing the lights around you. I got you covered on that too. So check us out each and every Thursday here on the network. Go to twit.tv/hop and subscribe today.